Shall we start with the lecture again?
Yes, sir.
Some students are yet to join, but it's okay. I think they will join whenever they get the opportunity because there may be some internet problems at their end. Okay, so I was telling you about the hollow cathode lamp, and I think that description is now over. Just remember that the cup-shaped cathode material is made up of the element that we want to detect. Okay, and this material is excited because of the electric current as well as the collisions from the inert gas atoms. Okay, so inert gas atoms will collide or they will bombard on the cathode material, and therefore that kinetic energy will be transferred to the cathode atoms, which will get excited, and when they come back to the ground state, they will emit radiation. That radiation is of a characteristic wavelength, which is very much, you can say, relevant to that particular metal only, and therefore we have very specific kind of radiation coming from that lamp source, which goes into the sample. And then let me see what is there on the next slide. Okay, this I have already told you. I'm not going to read it once again, but I just want to tell you that this is one difficulty, that for every element that we want to detect, we need a different lamp to be put in that instrument. Okay, and sometimes that becomes a real hectic work, and therefore to circumvent that kind of a problem, what is now available is we can have what is called as a multi-element lamp. Okay, so one single lamp is there which has a cathode which is made up of multiple different elements, maybe 2 or 3 different elements in the single cathode, and therefore without replacing that cathode lamp, we can use the same lamp for analyzing different types of metals. Okay, so we can purchase a lamp which has a multi-element cathode, and that will contain those elements which we want to measure very frequently. Okay, and then the problem will be solved to some extent. But another problem with these lamps is that the life of the lamp is not as good as the single element lamps. Okay, so we have to make that particular compromise, right? Then we go to the next slide. This particular slide shows you the atomic absorption lines or the emission lines of some of the elements. For example, gold has an emission line of 242.8, and that is the wavelength which is absorbed again by the pure atoms in the sample. Okay, so the same radiation is emitted by the hollow cathode lamp, and that radiation is absorbed again by the sample atoms, that is pure atoms. For palladium, it is 244.79, platinum is 265.94, then copper is about 300, silver is about 300 nanometer wavelength. And then you will realize from this particular information that most of the radiation which comes out from the hollow cathode lamps, and that is used for atomic absorption spectrophotometry, that radiation falls in the ultraviolet range. Okay, but that is not a rule. I can say that some other radiation in the visible range can also be emitted, and that can also be absorbed by the sample atoms. Okay, then we have another kind of a lamp that is called as an electroless discharge lamp, that is especially useful for very volatile elements. The problem with volatile elements is that if the cathode is made of that particular element, then the life of the lamp is not very good. Not only that, but the intensity of this lamp is not uniform. Okay, and it could be a low intensity, and therefore there are special types of lamps which are called electroless discharge lamps, where there is a small tube which is placed in a ceramic cylinder, and then in this cylinder we put the metal, that is we have the particular element that is to be detected, and in addition to that we also put iodine or metal iodide salts are added to that cylinder. And then using a microwave generator, okay, using a microwave generator, the microwaves are generated, and these microwaves will cause excitation of the atoms. Okay, and the advantage here is that we get the characteristic emission spectrum from these lamps, and the life of the lamp is also comparatively very good as compared to the hollow cathode lamps. Okay, then we move on to the next one. That is the same information which I had written on the earlier slide, so I will just skip that slide. And this is again a very, very important part of atomic absorption or atomic emission spectrophotometry. and that is how should the sample be prepared. Okay, so as I told you earlier that we need only liquid samples. Only liquid samples can be analyzed. So for example, if you have metallic gold, for example, and if you want to analyze how much is the content of copper in that gold, then what you need to do is you have to dissolve that gold sample in acid. So which acid is used for dissolving gold? Gold is a noble metal, isn't it? So
Yes.
will it dissolve in sulfuric acid? Concentrated sulfuric acid or concentrated hydrochloric acid? Somewhere in your chemistry text, you might have studied about this. Nobody knows. Have
No,
you
sir.
have you heard about a particular liquid which is called aqua regia?
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
What is that?
हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड में हो सकता है ना, HCl.
HCl
Nitric
only.
acid.
Yes, it is.
Nitric acid plus hydrochloric acid.
Yes, what is it used for? It is used for dissolving gold.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so if you go to certain applications, for example, where gold is used or gold is liquefied for some purpose, then they use aqua regia. Okay, so that is a combination of hydrochloric acid to nitric acid in the combination of in the proportion of 3:1. Okay, so what we need here is, if you want to analyze gold, for example, then you will have to dissolve it in aqua regia, may dilute that solution with water, and then so that it will be in a particular range of concentration, and then this liquid sample or a solution of that particular metal is then used for analysis using atomic absorption spectrophotometer. But importantly, the sample should not be a turbid sample. Okay, if it is turbid, then it must be filtered properly. Okay, either you can use a Wattman filter paper or any other kind of a good quality filter, so that your sample will not contain any insoluble particulate matter. Okay, what will happen if there is particulate matter in the sample? Then the tube of the nebulizer is a very fine capillary. Okay, so from that fine capillary, your liquid sample is going to go into the nebulizer, and then it will be dispersed. Okay, so if there are any particulates in the sample, then this particulate will probably block your capillary, and if the capillary is blocked, then of course it will not happen very suddenly. Slowly there will be some accumulation of the particulates in the capillary, and therefore the analysis result will be affected. You will even if your sample contains, say, X amount of the heavy metal, then it will never show you that X amount. It will always be a lesser amount which will be detected by the detector, because something is clogging the capillary, and therefore the sample is not going through the nebulizer into the flame very efficiently. Okay, so results will be affected, and after some time it may so happen that the capillary will be completely blocked, and nothing from your liquid sample will go into the flame, and therefore your analysis will not be done properly. Okay, so if it is, for example, a bacterial culture medium, and from that medium you want to analyze something, then you must ensure that all the bacterial cells from that medium should be removed, either by centrifugation or by maybe some other kind of a filtration, or then if you want to analyze the metal content within the bacterial cells, then of course you will have to lyse the bacterial cells. Okay, and after lysis of the cells, after breaking down the cells, then you would probably want to again filter or centrifuge the sample, so that all the cell debris will be removed, and only the clear liquid will be subjected to analysis by AAS or AES. Okay, then same thing for the plant material. If it is plant material or any maybe animal tissue or whatever, then it should be dissolved in a proper solvent, and only the soluble part will be taken for analysis. Okay, so we go to the next slide. Yes, then we come to the nebulizer part or the atomizer. So here we have a thin capillary, as I told you, and that capillary will take up your sample by using a suction kind of a thing or a vacuum device. Okay, so there is a vacuum pump, or in fact there is an air compressor which is used normally for the passage of air through the gas fuel. Okay, so we have a combination of acetylene and air, and for that we require an air compressor. So air compressor works in two ways. So on one hand, it will force the air to pass through the nebulizer into the flame, and at the same time it will create suction. Okay, it will also create vacuum from the other side, and that vacuum can be used to aspirate your sample. Okay, so the sample goes from the capillary into what is called as a spray chamber. Inside the spray chamber, the sample is dispersed in the form of a cloud or a mist. Okay, and then it is mixed with your with the fuel. The fuel will go into the flame. Obviously it will be burnt. Okay, and the sample aerosol will then go into the flame, where the sample will be burnt. The compounds or molecules will be burned down so that pure atoms will be generated. Okay, so in order to make that generation of pure atoms very efficient, we need to disperse the sample into a fine mist, okay, or a vapor. Is it okay? Then I go, there are some other details also given on the slide, but I'm not reading it purposely because those kinds of details are not really essential for your exam. Okay, and then of course you have an objective type of examination. So I'm probably there is some level of my understanding or belief that such questions will not be asked to you in the exams. Okay, so then coming to a little more about how the burners look like. Okay, I have some images here. This is called as a burner head. So can you see this slit here, this line here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is
Yes, sir.
along the sides of the burner. It is parallel to the sides, longer axis. Okay, and this particular slit is where the fuel gases will come out, acetylene and air. Okay, and the flame will burn here, and at the same time your sample also will be taken from this capillary. Can you see the capillary here? I'm showing it with the cursor. Okay, at the left hand down corner, if you see, this is a sample capillary. This capillary is dipped into the sample. Okay, and then it will suck the sample by vacuum, application of vacuum, and the sample goes inside. This is the nebulizer, this part. Okay, nebulizer, and at the end of the nebulizer here, there is a very, very fine pore. Okay, a very fine pore, and through this fine pore, with a lot of pressure, your sample is going to go inside this particular chamber. Okay, and because of that, the sample will be dispersed because the pressure is very high and the pore size is very, very small, and therefore the sample will be sprayed into the spray chamber. Okay, and there we have something called as a baffler also. So the purpose of using the baffler is if there are any big droplets of water, then these droplets by gravity, they will just fall down, okay, in the chamber, and then they will be drained away by through a drain here. Can you see this drain? Okay, it is written to waste here, to waste. Okay, so that is the drainage where a larger sample, larger droplets will be automatically removed, and only the fine droplets will be carried further ahead, and then they will go into the flame. Okay, the sample will burn here, and when the sample burns, the compounds and molecules will be converted into pure atoms. The pure atoms will remain in this flame for a very short time, a very transient time, and during that time, the radiation source is somewhere here. Light will fall exactly through the center of the flame. It will go to the detector this way. Okay, the source of light is here. The detector is on the opposite side. Okay, so whatever sample atoms are coming here in the flame, they will absorb that radiation. And of course, whatever is not absorbed will be detected by the detector, right? So more the concentration, less will be detected by the detector, more will be the absorption. And less the concentration of the metals, less will be the absorption. And therefore, more light will be detected by the detector. Okay, so this part is exactly similar to UV visible and infrared spectrophotometry. Any question about this? What I'm showing here on the slide, the diagrams, the schematic diagrams of the images.
Yes.
Okay. Then this is a little closer view of the flame. Okay, so the burner is hidden inside this particular chamber. Okay, this can you see this white thing here, thread-like thing? That is the capillary, and that capillary is dipped either into the sample, or it could be a blank solution with which doesn't contain the metal. Okay, so just like UV visible spectrophotometry, here also we have to use a blank. We have to use certain set of standards for calibration. Okay, and then we will aspirate the sample, and then the sample solution will go through the capillary here. There is a nebulizer in this part. There is a spray chamber here. So the sample liquid will be converted into a mist or a dispersion. That dispersion will go into the flame. Okay, and then here in this flame the sample will be burnt so that pure atoms are generated. Then on this side, that is left hand side, we have the radiation source which will emit a particular wavelength of light. That wavelength will go through the flame, and depending upon the concentration of the atoms, pure atoms, the light will be absorbed. And here on this side we have the detector. Okay, and that will detect your the sample. Okay, the sample atoms. Okay, a small mistake I have told when I was describing this instrument, and that is I have said that light source is here and the detector is here. But for this particular instrument, which is shown in this particular image, the light source actually is here. So can you see this 1, 2? Okay, these are the hollow cathode lamps. Okay, and there is what is called as a turret assembly here. So this turret assembly, the spelling of this word is TURRET, okay. So turret assembly is where we can put multiple lamps here in the lamp holders. Okay, and then these lamp holders are given numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So at a time maybe there are 6 to 8 different lamps which can be placed inside. Okay, and then there is a software, and when we give a particular command in the software, then automatically one particular lamp will be aligned here. Okay, and from that lamp the radiation will go, it will exactly fall into the flame, and it will carry out the analysis. Okay, so lamp source is here, radiation source is here, and the detector is on this side of the instrument. Okay, so that is the only variation. In the earlier figures which I have shown you, earlier images, maybe just let me go a little earlier. Okay, this one here. Okay, the lamp source is here on the left hand side, and the detector is on the right hand side of the instrument, and at the center we have the sampling chamber. Okay, where the flame is there to burn the sample. Okay, so that these variations are there. Instrument to instrument variations are always there, depending upon the manufacturer's own idea or design how to make the instrument. So that is not a big problem. But what I wanted to show here, show you here is in the earlier instrument there was a single lamp which could be attached in the instrument, and then for every different metal we had to remove the lamp and replace it with another lamp. But in this particular model of the instrument, there is a turret assembly where we can put different lamps together. And maybe if these lamps are often used for the analysis, then the only thing we need to do is give that particular command in the software and specify which lamp is to be used for the analysis. And that lamp will come into the proper position. It will be aligned. Of course, the lamps need to be aligned because the radiation coming from the lamp should go exactly through the center of the flame, and therefore some minor adjustment in the alignment of the lamp, okay, in both the XY axis and the Z axis. Okay, So in all the 3 dimensions, the lamp must be aligned carefully so that the radiation coming from the lamp will go exactly through the center of the flame, and therefore your analysis will be very, very efficient. Okay. Okay, then coming to another slide, that is how to increase the sensitivity. And then I told you that we can use the graphite furnace. So there are some details which are given about the graphite furnace. I will not want to tell you everything about the graphite furnace because that is not essential for your purpose of examination. But just as an information, I will tell you that the graphite furnace is looks like this. Maybe you have seen or heard about furnaces somewhere. What is a furnace used for? Have you ever seen a furnace
Sir,
anytime? Huh?
burning things, burning.
Burning something or heating something. Okay. Where have you
Yes,
seen a
sir.
furnace?
Sir, in the movies, in
Where?
the sir, in the sitting room, they have a furnace.
In the
So living room, they have a furnace in the winter countries.
in your home? Is it in your home?
No, no, sir. In the countries where it is very cold.
Okay, okay, but that is not a furnace. It is actually a heater, room heater. If it is a furnace, then that would be very dangerous, isn't it? Because the temperature of a furnace is a very high temperature. Okay,
Yes,
for the
yes,
for
sir.
the
Yes,
room,
sir.
yeah, for the room we require a normal temperature of say something like 30 degree or something, isn't it? 25 to 30 degree, that is okay. Okay, a furnace is something which allows you to heat a particular article or whatever thing you have and to a very high temperature, probably with the intention to either melt it or maybe to shape it, to give a proper shape to that particular material. Okay, and you might have maybe, I do not know about your generation, but in the earlier generation we used to see these furnaces at places where the blacksmiths use them. Do you know what is a blacksmith?
Yes, sir.
Or even a goldsmith also uses a
Yes, sir.
furnace to melt gold, for example, or to give a particular shape
Yes, yes, sir.
to the metal. Okay, so the temperature
Yes,
and
sir, yes.
yeah, so what is the size of a furnace? Any idea?
So the
Does it
furnaces used by the blacksmith are literally small. They
small?
were not so big.
So how small are they? Like a matchbox, or they look like a mobile phone, or they look like a
No, no,
computer?
not so small.
Hmm.
About 2 to 3 feet I have seen.
2 to 3 feet, you're saying? Okay, maybe I'll take your answer. Okay, sometime the furnaces could be very high. I think you might have also seen furnaces where they do the smelting work or something. Okay, at least you might have heard it somewhere. Okay, so they on an industrial scale, the furnaces are very, very big. Okay, where they
Yes,
deal with
sir. Yes,
metals. Okay, heavy metals. Okay, making iron rods or different shapes of iron. Okay, so they have very huge furnaces. And what you are talking about, the blacksmith furnace, that they are yeah, they could be about 2 feet or 3 feet or something, less or even more than that. Okay, but the furnace I am talking about for the atomic absorption spectrophotometer, how big that could be? Any idea? I'm just asking a question, okay? Not very serious one, okay? But just to create a little interest in your mind. Okay, what could be the size of a furnace, graphite furnace used in atomic absorption spectrophotometer? The cost of atomic
Sir,
absorption spectrophotometer with a graphite furnace could be ranging from something like, I think 30 lakh rupees to about 50 lakh rupees. Okay. Any idea?
no, sir.
2 3 feet maybe
2 3
for
feet.
laboratory scale.
Okay, on a laboratory scale, maybe 2 3 feet. Okay, any other answer anybody wants to give? What about the girls? They don't want to answer today. Shraddha Joshi?
No idea, sir.
No idea. Okay, anybody else? Yogita and Shubhangi is there. Vaishnavi is there. Do you want to answer? Okay, just as a matter of curiosity, I'm asking. पूजा, क्षमता, स्नेहल. स्नेहल नहीं, कौन शीतल है का? इज दिस शीतल और स्नेहल?
Snail, sir.
Snehal. Okay, so I was calling you Sheetal. Probably your the name which came on this is Sheetal Jadhav. Who is Sheetal Jadhav then?
No one is Sital here.
Okay, okay. I was thinking your name is Sheetal, so I think I was asking this
No, sir,
question.
my name is Snail.
Yeah. So that is the mistake which I made. I was trying to ask you some questions in the earlier lectures also, and I was calling you Sheetal, and therefore I didn't used to get any answer from you. Okay, anyway, so I have 10 minutes for this particular lecture. So how many of you want me to continue this lecture again immediately so that I can end the topic today? Is it okay if I finish off the topic today itself?
Yes, sir.
I have about maybe 10 to 12 slides remaining. Okay, so we'll join back immediately. Have you had your lunch or breakfast? I had purposely given that message telling you that you can have your lunch or breakfast, whatever you want, so that you won't feel hungry or tired during the lecture. Okay. And since your interest level is quite high, which I can see, I think I will complete this particular topic. Okay, because again, the exams have come very close, and I think we should get enough time for your studies also, isn't it? So if I take the lectures till the exam time, that will be a little difficult for you. Okay, well, if you can't answer this question, I'll tell you, can you see this particular image here? Can you see this photograph? I'll make it
Yes, sir.
little larger here. This one, okay? This small thing that you see here, a tube-like thing, okay, cylindrical thing, that is, okay, the real size is also the same, okay? That is about, say, 1 centimeter or something, close to 1 centimeter in length, and the diameter is probably maybe about half a centimeter. Okay, 4 to 5 millimeter, I would say. Okay, that actually is a graphite furnace, surprisingly. A very, very small thing indeed. Okay, so you would probably not believe me that this is a furnace, but it is actually a furnace. Okay, and this small little thing is placed inside this particular part. Okay, that is the burner is removed. Okay, this part is the burner. So this burner is removed, and instead of the burner, we put a small holder, and that holder will contain this graphite furnace. Okay, and the inner volume of this again is a very, very tiny volume, I would say, and that will hold a very, very small amount of sample. The sample is put inside the graphite furnace from this little pit. Can you see the pit here? There's a small hole here. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from that small hole, a very small quantity of sample of, say, 10 to 50 microliter sample is added, and that sample will go inside the furnace. And then when you start the particular command, or when you give a particular command, then immediately the graphite furnace will get heated up. It will the temperature will go to more than 3000 degree to about, say, 5000 or even 6000 degrees centigrade, and therefore there is what is called as flash evaporation of the sample. So within a fraction of a second, the sample will get evaporated. All of the sample will get evaporated at the same time, and therefore a very, very large number of pure atoms will be generated. Okay, in the small space, I'm saying, in that small space, a large amount of pure atoms will be generated. And then what we have is the source of lamp, the radiation is kept on one side of this furnace. Okay, can you see my cursor again?
Yes, sir.
Just let me
Yes.
see one thing. Can I just copy and paste it on the whiteboard? I don't know. If I go to the whiteboard and say Control V, no, it doesn't copy and paste it. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I'll try to use the whiteboard to tell you how it would look like. Oh, sorry. I want this thing. Okay, this is how the furnace would look like, a cylindrical thing. Okay, and inside this particular cylinder, there is a cavity of a certain space here. Okay, and again, if you want to make this thing a little more clear, then I would use it like this. Can you see that? There's a small volume inside this furnace. Okay, and then at the top there is I'll show it this way. Can you see that? So this is the pour. Just a minute, I'll want to slightly change the position of this. So that it comes approximately to the center. Okay, so this is the small pour at the top from which we can put the sample. So I'll just show that with the help of an arrow here. And I'll use a different color. Okay, so sample goes inside like this. Right, and this particular furnace is placed inside the atomic absorption spectrophotometer at the sampling port. Okay, so maybe let me again show you that also. So if this is the entire instrument, okay, then in the sampling part we have this, and then here I will have to show you where the radiation source is kept, and here I would show where the detector is placed here. Okay, so now again let me use this color to show you that the lamp is placed here. Okay, and this particular lamp is now going to emit a particular radiation. Okay, that radiation, just remember that this is the arrangement is very, very precise. Okay, and you know, sometimes it will take hours for you to make all the adjustment properly, and once everything is adjustment, the lamp source is aligned properly so that the radiation will go exactly to the center of this graphite furnace, so that it will fall on the sample which is placed inside. Okay, sample goes inside, and then this is heated at a temperature of say more than 3000 degrees centigrade. Okay, so that is why the sample will be instantly vaporized, and then you see that the volume here is a very, very small volume, and therefore a large number of pure atoms which will be generated because of the rapid heating, you can say, or very high degree heating. Okay, large number of pure atoms will be generated, and these will be there in a very, very small volume. Okay, and when the large number of pure atoms are there in a small volume, what is the effect of that? They will absorb a large amount of radiation. Of course, that will be dependent upon the concentration. So low concentration, less absorption of the light, and less concentration of the sample atoms, more less will be the absorption. And depending according to that, okay, I'll just a minute. I will again have to show you that this is the radiation, okay, of a particular wavelength, and then something will be absorbed by the sample, and therefore what is not absorbed will be emitted. Okay, and what is emitted will then be detected by the detector. Okay, so we have the detector here. Okay, this detector will detect the transmitted light, and then of course the signal from the detector will then subsequently go to the instrument software system. where there will be processing on the data. Okay, the data will be processed, and then you get it in the form of an output. Okay, so let me show it with a different color. So yes, so that is the detector. Okay, so do you want me to write everything here again? Maybe I'll put just a short form. Okay, so this is the detector. Oh no, that is not the detector. That is the